Welcome to Texas 2036's virtual series, Straight Talk Texas, where you have a front row seat to conversations on topics important to our future. My name is Enisha Shropshire, Director of Board and External Affairs here at Texas 2036. Today, Texas 2036 President and CEO Margaret Spellings is joined by Stefanie Sanford, Chief of Global Policy and External Relations at the College Board. In this role, Stefanie leads advocacy initiatives for students with policymakers, public and private institutions, and organizations. Prior to joining the College Board, Stefanie spent over 10 years at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, most recently as the Director of Policy and Advocacy for the United States program. These two education leaders will discuss the massive disruption to our education system due to COVID-19 pandemic and its effect on learning continuity. Margaret?
Stefanie, thank you for being here. And with that, we will dive right in. Wow, lots of changes this spring. You all, speaking of resiliency, you adapted and innovated on a dime. Talk about that. Talk about how you went from testing millions of students in physical places to 100% online.
So great to be with you, Margaret. Terrific to spend a lot of time together virtually. Always fun to converse. And yeah, it has been quite a spring for everyone, but particularly for us. We've toyed with notions of virtual AP and things, working online and things in online assessment. But when COVID happened and we closed our offices and schools began to close, we surveyed students. Because it's like, oh God, remember there was so much uncertainty. There's uncertainty still, but there was so much uncertainty then. And we did a big student survey and it came back at 91% of the students said, we want a test. We've been working hard all year. We want a chance to show what we can do. We want a chance to get college credit. And so we looked at the feasibility of what it would take to be able to do that. And we then stood up AP testing online in about 8 weeks. And you probably know that the scores are being released over the course of this week. But we had about 2.5 million students take about 5 million exams.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really quite amazing. And and the overwhelming majority of those who signed up and registered in the fall then came and actually took the exams. And so we proved that we really could stand it up. We had to make a lot of changes in the design of the exam. Mm-hmm. And we also learned that when you do something that fast, innovation, it's not perfect.
Right.
As you probably read, there were some students who had kind of technical problems. Mm-hmm. And when you start talking about 2.5 million kids, even if you only have 1% or 2%, you're talking about thousands of kids who have problems. And so we learned a ton about not only how do you do a large scale assessment, but also how do you problem solve for students who are on their phones or on Chromebooks or on things like that. And so not only did we learn a lot about sort of the bread and butter of moving AP online, we also learned a lot about sort of technological innovation as well.
So you've had the summer to refine your thinking as we head into fall, and much of it, especially at the high school level and middle school level, very likely to be online. So what are you seeing from educators around the country? What are you seeing with students on their willingness and desire to kind of take it up again? How are you looking at the fall?
So we thought that, as hard as it was to deal with the uncertainty of things closing down, the only thing harder than everything closing down is figuring out how it's going to open up. Mm-hmm. And so already we're seeing the announcements. I'm sitting right now here in DC, or from Fairfax, from New York, from LA. So there's going to be no shortage of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And so as we've taken what we learned about doing not only the online assessments, but we did AP Live, we did video lessons and things like that. So as we look ahead, sort of took a step back and we say, okay, what do we think that particularly high school students need to stay on track? I mean, that's what the College Board does.
Right.
Long before all of this, we were about, clearing a path to help young people get to and through college. So if we stuck by and say, okay, what do they need in the fall? One, they need high-speed connectivity and devices to be able to continue learning. The second is they need high-quality coursework that can be done wherever they are. And then third, guidance and help in some simple steps to be able to stay on the path to college. And that way, those things, so that learning can happen regardless of whether you're in brick and mortar buildings, whether you're in and out of those buildings, whether you're fully remote. And already, here in mid-July, we're already seeing that we're going to see students are going to see all of those things nationwide.
Right. Exactly. And what are you hearing from teachers?
So I think our AP teachers, I think there's sort of an age bias a little bit. I think the older they are, my sister is a 30-year math teacher. Mm-hmm. And she both was daunted by having, a day or 2 days notice to be able to create, sort of online work after being a highly successful 8th grade math teacher for her whole career. Right. And now they're in her district, they're having a choice between, in person and and online. And I think teachers are very anxious. Mm-hmm. I think that's why we have had as such a priority to be able to, work with our AP community and be able to have these AP resources that will enable them. If you have to teach if an AP teacher needs to teach fully remote, they can. If they need to be in and out, it'll be flexible enough to do that. So about a year ago, we created what was something called AP Classroom. Mm-hmm. And essentially that's a much thicker set of through course, course guides, quizzes, sequencing, all of that. So AP teachers are an independent lot. Some of them will use all of it. Some of them use a little bit of it. Right. But a bunch of them got comfortable with it last year. And so now that's ready for this year. We also then are creating a set of video lessons to then augment that. So that if you're in school one day but out of school the next, or you're on some mm-hmm. other kind of block schedule, you can essentially sort of flip the classroom by using video. And so our hope is that as we look ahead, so we call it AP Daily. So you have through course resources. So, and that's true for teachers and for students. Mm-hmm. We'll have video lessons, and we've learned that, we did sort of like full course length, like 40 and 50 minute videos. What we've learned is that actually much shorter ones based on a lesson or actually land better. So we've even just in the time that we learned video from the spring to now will inform that design. So that we really believe that it's critical to have our AP teachers feel safe. Mm-hmm. And if that means in some places that they can go be distanced in schools or things like that they can. But if they're going to be on a blended schedule, or if they're going to be because they're older like my sister is and they want to teach fully remote from home, that they'll have the resources to be able to do that.
Yeah. One thing I think that's a real advantage for AP is that people understand it as quality. I mean, I think we're all struggling with what's going on under the hood out there. And mm-hmm. you all have obviously a sequence, a proxy, and a test, a measurement at the end of the day that I think gives people comfort around that. You mentioned broadband a second ago. How much of an impediment has that been, either in terms of the infrastructure, the 5G itself or whatever, and then also devices, hotspots, whatever, boulders?
Yeah. So I think people you've got national groups trying to, get a package together for a subsequent relief package. Right. I think you've got state level broadband coalitions. I had a fantastic conversation with Larry Irving last week, who was the guy he was a guy who coined the phrase digital divide, wrote Falling Through the Net 25 years ago, to try to get a handle on sort of like, of all times, one that he can't believe we're still talking about this 25 years later. Isn't this the moment we ought to fix this? Right. From a college board perspective, we just weren't sure. We said we were going to, put everything on like the immediate first thing. We said, well, what about devices and what about broadband? And so, literally, we put up a form and said, if, for teachers, for students, if you have a student or a teacher and you don't have a device or you don't have broadband, let us know. And we heard from over 28,000 teachers and students.
Wow.
And we set up we have our customer service group. And then we had a bunch of people who, because we're not in the office and we had to cancel events and things like that, we have people from across the College Board who volunteered to actually be sort of ombudsman for students and for students and teachers. So we had a partnership with T-Mobile around hotspots. They were donating. You had Amazon who donated some Chromebooks. You had, we had a partnership with Donors Choose to be able to connect, to teachers that way. A little bit like the innovation of moving all of these assessments online, it forced us to problem solve in real time. And so, our posture in this digital divide question is to say, okay, here's what we learned. Like, we thought it was going to be all devices. It was like amazingly about connectivity and reliable connectivity.
Okay.
Right. So, if you think about, one of the things we did was we shortened the AP exam to 45 minutes.
Okay.
Because if the original AP exam is like 3 hours. And so, I don't know sort of where you're sitting right now, but 3 hours of uninterrupted broadband. When we were sequestered, in Texas at my mom's and everybody, you get 4 people, doing Zoom and it's not so reliable. So, so from a College Board perspective, we're working to engage with these, broadband coalitions to sort of bring the hard data about what we know about our population and about what it took for them to be able to access the exam, to be able to complete the exam, to be able to access the AP Live video courses, things like that. So sort of bringing the sort of crash course in digital divide that we got in the 8 weeks of AP Live and AP at Home.
So, Stefanie, one of the things that I'm, we're all watching this debate, and Secretary DeVos was on the Sunday shows and whatnot about, going back to school, not going back to school, and what kind of going back to school and so on. And, one issue that I think is, and although that's appropriate, but that conversation, but really we need to focus on this learning loss issue. And we're all seeing, you and I've talked about this a little bit, just horrifying gaps that are going to be hard to recover from, that will net in lifetime learning loss, and obviously our poor and minority students especially, but not only them.
Right.
So talk about what you're seeing last year to this year. What are you hearing about that?
I think it's really, the irony or the irony or unintended consequence of this question of learning loss is by doing away with assessments or waiving assessments, you sort of you do away with your ability to be able to assess that. Right. And so I think a lot of times, we're flying blind in a lot of ways by not having some sort of diagnostic assessment or large scale assessment to take a baseline to say, hey, here's where students are. And I think there are obviously logistical questions about how you're able to do that. But I think one of the biggest problems is we sort of know there's learning loss, but we don't have a mechanism now to be able to assess it, to know the extent of it, to know the disaggregation and the disaggregated impacts of that, and then to be able to do something about it. Right. And so, I wonder, there's sort of the anti-testing debate is sort of testing yes or no or testing good or bad, as opposed to, wait a second, what we need an instrument to know where kids are after this massive disruption, and so that we can then get to the business of remedying that. And so I wonder, you're a longtime veteran of the testing debate and assessment and accountability. What do you think the argument is to say, this isn't testing yes or no, testing good or bad, testing I like it, testing I don't like it, but rather, if not that, then how do we know where students are? How can we, if we care about equity, how can we then get resources to remedy those learning losses if we just don't know.
Exactly. I like to say we got to care enough to find out.
Yeah, right.
So, this, as terrible as this is obviously going to have, there are some innovation, some renaissance, some silver linings in these clouds. What are some things that you're seeing that you feel optimistic about, encouraged about?
It's funny. We really, to have watched students and teachers in the sort of AP community, when everything shut down, they stepped up. Mm-hmm. And there was if you didn't see it, there's a fantastic piece, front page of the Washington Post today, and it's about an AP World History teacher, and it's like 67 days until the exam, and it's a real human interest story about how the struggle that this great teacher had in moving his stuff online. How he engaged with his students and how they kept working and to prepare, how he problem solved for them. And it was just a good reminder that, the narrative right now is that nothing works. There's nothing you can do. Right. And this was we certainly saw it in the thousands of, actually, I think we surveyed 18,000 students and how they came back resoundingly wanting to keep working. How we heard from our teachers about, they raised their hands that they wanted to be the video teachers, and so that's the story of sort of defeatism. Yeah. There's like this predominant narrative, but like when you get down to real teachers and real kids, they're getting it done, and it was inspiring, and it was great to see this. It was, I highly recommend that you go read it because it gives you a real picture of what the day-to-day life was. And puts real sort of authentic humanity behind some of the stuff we were just talking about. What is it to have, sort of one crappy jetpack that you're sharing with 4 siblings while you're all trying to go to school during a pandemic? Right. Exactly. What is the guy when he's doing the teacher, when he's doing his review and he knows he's got 112 students, but he sees that 21 of them aren't there, just a real sense of it. And I came away from that piece really, grateful, and it sounds hokey to say grateful for AP, but grateful for students, and to really remember that I don't think people want to quit. Yeah. And so it's incumbent upon us to find ways and mechanisms to help keep them going.
For last question, given all of that, and with the understanding that all over this country, we're going to have resource constraints, that's certainly going to be true in Texas, and lots of challenges. What advice do you have for policymakers as they prioritize these issues and think about first dollar investing and, the needs of today?
So confine it up to sort of education. Yeah. I do think the sort of 3 buckets, which is this question of connectivity and devices. It's concrete and addressable, right? We can help with that, but others can help with that, right. And whether that's stimulus money or subsidies or is to go and make sure because that's table stakes now.
Totally.
Everywhere,
and,
right?
And healthcare and commerce and lots of other things too. Yeah.
Exactly. So of all the, if you care about equity, you sort of have to do that first because it enables everything else. Yeah. Again, I think with respect to sort of learning continuity, that how is it that we do keep focusing on learning? I think you and I had both lamented, it's like we're talking about all of this other stuff around schools, and it's like, okay, is anybody learning anything?
Yeah, exactly.
And so what are the mechanisms? Obviously we know AP for high school, but other organizations and resources, Learning Heroes and others, right? So that, and to get clear and to simplify to the extent possible. Because I think there's an inclination to to say, okay, we got to do more, we got to do more, we got to do more. And what we find in moments when of anxiety, and particularly with kids, the best thing you could do is like simplify.
Yeah.
So as we think about the how to keep, juniors and seniors on track to college, you've got all these college access organizations, virtual advising, point them to the few high leverage things that you got to do, right? That you need your list. You need to try, take your exam, practice, fill out the FAFSA, and so, you've got a lot of energy.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, right? And I think the impulse is to want to do more because it seems like the problems are so big. And so that'd probably be my biggest advice is table stakes on broadband, and then simplify these other steps, because there are so many other complexities of having to do, of working from home and homeschooling and closing and opening. The more, whenever we can simplify, we ought to try to.
Stefanie, thank you so much. I'm glad to know that you're at the helm of an important organization, helping lead the way through this. And I appreciate your friendship and your leadership and your being with us today. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Great to be with you, Margaret. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all for watching Straight Talk Texas. If you have questions and feedback, we want to hear from you. Email us at straighttalk@texas2036.org and follow us on social media and sign up to receive our emails. Visit texas2036.org for more information. Until next time, wishing you and your family well.